Hi guys, thank you for joining Tune In Tuesday. We're going to be starting in just a few minutes. Hi guys, thanks for joining Tune In Tuesday. We're going to be starting in just a few minutes. Hey everybody, thanks so much for dialing into this week's installment of Tune In Tuesday. For those of you tuning in for the first time, these are 15-minute health-oriented calls led by industry specialists like myself. And our goal is to give you guys some more information, tools surrounding multiple ideas of health and how you can use them within your lives. And today's focus is going to be how to eat sustainably and healthy. But first, a little bit about who I am, because I'm sure you're wondering why you should be listening to me. So for starters, I wanted to walk you through some of my experience, which you can read more about in the slide below. But I think most notably, I've been a coach at Intrepid Gym for the past 7 years. I'm a precision nutrition level 1 certified coach, and I've created and written multiple courses and editorials on how to eat right and get fit. So let's jump in today's topic. But first, why should you care about eating sustainably and healthy? So there's about 7.5 billion people on the planet and counting. And as the Earth's population grows, the amount of food that needs to be produced for that rising population grows too. So a lot of the things that come to play when you're thinking about feeding a planet full of 7.5 billion people, which is only exponentially growing, think by 2050, we're en route to have 9 billion people inhabiting the planet. By 2100, we're closing in on 10 billion people, which is insane. Whether you want to believe it or not, the environment is affected tremendously by the mass production of food. Only about 10 companies control almost every single item of food and drink that you buy. And if you take a look at how much effort it takes to produce that food, the numbers are pretty staggering. And you can read them below. And these are just global emission statistics cited from just the developed world. So I think just Europe and North America, that's not including any other regions. So the natural question that arises out of this is, should I care? And if I do, what can I do about it? So I think first things first, you should care. The reality is that in some way, shape, or form, this is going to affect you. And the good news about all of this is that you can take action in your daily life. And the flip side of that is that not only can you help the earth, but you can also be helping yourself as well, since this is something that's going to have a positive impact on your health too. So with that said, let's jump into 5 ways that you can start eating healthy and sustainably. The first is just eat more plants. And I'm going to dive more into these in each one, but at a high level, the second is minimizing meat consumption, or at least finding quality and sustainable meats. The third is eating a variety of seafood. The fourth is eating locally. And then the fifth and last is eating mindfully. So let's dive more into each one. So there's a ton of benefits to eating plants from both an environmental perspective, but also from a health perspective. And every single health professional has cited that eating more vegetables has a variety of health benefits, including, but not limited to, being low in caloric density and high in nutritional density. They have a plethora of vitamins and minerals that are beneficial to your body. This ends up affecting your mood, your hormones, your overall body composition. The other advantage is that, when you're eating plants, they're full of fiber. It helps you stay full for longer, which in turn helps you not eat so much. And that translates to maintaining a healthy weight and not snacking on other not so healthy snacks. From an environmental perspective, I've cited some pretty crazy stats above on the impact of global meat production, but here's the thing. You get more bang for your buck with plants. A study conducted by the Humane Party showed that plant products grow more than 1.5 trillion more pounds of product than livestock, and 512% more pounds of food than animals on 69% of land mass. So pretty crazy numbers. It's worth noting that the Humane Society is advocating for not eating animals or livestock. So I'm taking that into consideration, but nevertheless, those are still pretty staggering statistics. Scientists also cite that without meat and dairy consumption, global farmland use could drop by 75%. And they also cite that global meat production uses up about 83% of the land, while only providing about 18% of total calories in the world. So if you're thinking, wow, these numbers are pretty crazy, we're on the same page, which is a nice segue into the next thing that you can do to help the environment while also eating healthy, and that's minimizing meat consumption. And look, not to sound like a broken record, but it's pretty clear that there's a lot of downsides to global meat production. So if maybe you're spacing out in the beginning, a little bit of stats. I mean, only 40% of the Earth's land is used to feed 7 billion people. 1/3 of all fresh water, 1.3 billion tons of grain are grown, and they're not eaten by any humans, just by farm animals. 75% of global emissions come from cattle and other ruminants. 56% of global emissions come from poultry and pigs. And plant production is 512% more productive than meat production. And then if no meat production was existent, we'd use 75% less farmland. This is insane. And the reality is that these statistics aren't going to change overnight. And there's a lot of studies and documentaries showing that meat consumption isn't good for your overall health. Think like the China study, Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy. In my opinion, some of these studies are a little bit out of scope and far-fetched. I think it's really all about finding quality meat and other resources that can help you still get protein in your diet. As for quality meat, what I really mean here is just not eating meat that's grain-fed or part of CAFO, which is concentrated feeding animal operation. I try to make a pretty concerted effort to make sure that all the meat, fish, and eggs are humanely raised, grass-fed, or pasture-raised. And, I think a lot of what's causing obesity, type 2 diabetes, and overall health issues in society is largely due to an excessive consumption of grains, processed foods, and combined with an overall sedentary lifestyle. And this is exactly what cheap and widely accessible meat that's fed to you is. Grain-fed pigs, chicken, cattle plopped into factory houses and served fresh to your plate. Now, I'm not going to rehash this because I'm sure you've heard all the documentaries. I think the point is your health is a reflection of the food you eat and also just moving around. And it's important that the meat you eat does the same. So my recommendation on meat consumption, if that's the choice you make, and being transparent, it's mine too, is go farm direct, humanely raised, grass-fed, cage-free, or pasture-raised. And this might cost a little bit more, but I really think that it's worth the cost for your body and the environment. And if you can't do it all the time, or you can't monitor it, perhaps when you're out to eat at a restaurant, totally okay. Something's better than nothing. And the other option that you have is also just finding other sources of protein. So you can eat things like lentils, quinoa, almonds, beans and rice, insect protein. You can actually go to exoprotein.com. There's no affiliate links or anything like that. It's basically cricket-based protein bars. you can find grass-fed and local farms that you trust. I personally use ButcherBox. It's food delivered or meat delivered straight to your door. And then the other is eating fish and seafood, which brings me to my next point. And kind of it's going to be a quick slide, but the main reason that I wanted to touch upon this is because really it's an extension of minimizing meat consumption. Seafood's healthier for you. It contains a ton of protein and also has a lot of essential fats. However, like anything in the world, resources are finite. So I've just provided a quick resource that allows you to select fish where you'll be able to make sure that you're not eating seafood that's in danger of being overfished. From a labeling perspective, I suggest just finding wild-caught fish instead of farm-raised. The difference between farm-raised and wild-caught is that farm-raised is inside of a tank, while wild-caught fish is actually from a natural habitat. And with all the talk around labels and finding quality food, the best way to be able to do that is really just to eat locally. And the advantages are being an informed consumer. Probably the most important benefit for your health when finding eating locally is being able to understand where your food's coming from, how it was grown, how it was fed. The other is helping your local economy. All that money that you spend on your local resources means that money stays within the local economy and then also supporting small businesses. And then I think from the environmental side of things, less transport means less greenhouse emissions. It takes a lot of energy to transport food, especially at a global scale. So the money that you're spending on local resources means it cuts down on that mass transportation from like big grocery chains, which in turn impact on greenhouse emissions. And then I also provided a quick resource for you guys, which you can check out. It basically just has areas where you can find local food. Think small grocers, farmers markets, local butchers, things like that. And I provided all these resources for you at the end of the deck if you're interested in taking a look. And finally, really the easiest thing that you can do to make sure that you're eating sustainably is just eating mindfully. Being aware of how much you're eating so that it doesn't go to waste, because it's really beneficial for you and your health when you're eating consciously. A lot of actually eating with your stomach and not with your eyes, because I think it helps with portion control. It's going to result in less calories being ingested, and it's going to help you, with that summer bod. That season's on the way. One of the best books that I've read about this is actually called Mindless Eating. And you can click on the link there. It'll take you right over to the Amazon page. It basically talks about a lot of the ways that our mind perceives portions, and then also nice strategies and tactics that you can use, like maybe putting food on a smaller plate, for example, to help you with that conscious eating. And then I think, from an environmental perspective, it just means that you're going to waste less. Stop throwing out food that you don't need. At a quick glance, 1.3 billion tons of food is wasted each year. On average, consumers in Europe and North America are wasting 95 to 115 kilograms a year, while regions like South Asia and Africa are wasting about 6 to 11 kilograms a year. Fruits, vegetables, roots, tubers have the highest waste percentages of any food. And the studies below, or at least in the back of the resources, so that you can check it out. I think at the end of the day, I'm a really big believer that the quality of food that you put into your body is going to output chances of you being healthier and even looking better. Read ingredients, understand where your food comes from, be an informed consumer. At the end of the day, moderation is key. Sustainability is everything. And being in a position as a consumer where you can know about what you're putting into your body actually impacts the environment in a positive way at the same time. So I think the takeaway message, guys, is eat good food, keep the planet in mind. We only have one body and one planet, so it's just best to take very good care of both. And before I jump into to Q&A, just a quick plug, if you guys are interested, you had seen some of the references before to My Property, Desk Job Life. I'm the creator. It's a site that helps knowledge workers move, eat, and look better in ways that complement their day-to-day. So if you're interested, would love for you guys to check it out and potentially sign up for my email list. But from here, I'll just open it up to some Q&A. Hey guys, you can just enter the questions in the chat, and I can just answer them as they come in. Yep, sure thing. So if you go over to the deck, you can click on Find Local Food, and you'll be able to explore all the ways. So it'll be all set up by zip code. Yep, there you go. Any other questions? So Chrissy asked a pretty good question. Is it true to have several smaller meals per day rather than 3 main meals? Look, it's really up to you based on preference. I mean, I typically practice something called intermittent fasting. So I skip a meal during the day. Just makes me feel better. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much food that you're eating. What matters is the quality of food that you're putting in. So if you're eating a lot of plants, grass-fed meats, and other vegetables and fruits, this is going to help you ultimately to eat less because it'll fill you up with the fiber, and then ultimately make sure that your overall caloric intake is still down. So hopefully that answers your question, Chrissy, but you can follow up in the chat. Angela asked a really good question. What about the 8 on, 16 off eating schedule? So that's something that I do. It's called intermittent fasting. You can practice. There's a bunch of different variations. There's the warrior diet where you can do 4 on and 20 off, or 12 and 16, or sometimes people do like 24-hour fasts. A lot of it is just related to restricting your feeding window, essentially, so that ultimately you can eat less. I think that, again, kind of going back to Chrissy's question, Angela, the most important thing is making sure that you're getting the right amount of food. And that kind of ties into reading ingredients, knowing where your food's coming from, and just understanding what you're putting on your plate before you kind of get into any more advanced strategies around diet restriction. But there's a bunch of resources that you can check out for that. I think Eat Stop Eating is a really good book. And then another one is Martin Berkman's Intermittent Fasts, or leangains.com, which is a pretty solid resource. And guys, if there's any other questions, feel free to mention it in the chat. Cool. Guys, thanks so much for the time today. Really appreciated it. There's going to be a blog up on this topic on FitSpot's site. We're going to email it out. Once again, thanks again for the time, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks.